Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the park.
You're in a good mood.
Well, the Phillies are playing the Dodgers today, and I've got tickets to the game. Oh, do you want to come?
Oh, yes. But I thought it was an afternoon game.
It is. If we leave at 2:30, we'll be there for the start.
But what about the office? If we left at 2:30, Kathy would go crazy.
No, she won't care.
She never lets us leave early.
Kathy, can we go to the Phillies game today?
Absolutely not. Forget it.
Told you. Hi, I'm Vicky.
And I'm Jay, and this video is the third in our series on English conditionals.
We've looked at the zero and the first conditional, and now it's time to look at the second.
And we have another story for you so you can see it in action.
A funny story. I think the second conditional is my favourite because it's about future possibilities.
But so is the first conditional.
Yes, but these possibilities are more imaginary. We just saw an example.
Then let's see how it works.
If we left at 2:30, Kathy would go crazy.
No, she won't care.
Second conditionals have two parts, two clauses. One is the condition and one is the result. In the condition clause, we use if with the past tense. And for the result, we use the modal verb would, and then the base form of the verb.
Notice we use would in the result clause and not the condition clause. Like other conditionals, we can reverse the order and the meaning stays the same. Just remember to use a comma if the sentence starts with if. If we leave at 2:30, we'll be there for the start.
So Jay used a first conditional here, but I used a second. They're similar, but in the second conditional, we use the past instead of the present, and instead of will, we use would.
Okay, so when do we use a first conditional and when do we use a second?
It depends on how likely we think something is.
How certain we are that it will happen.
Yeah, first conditionals are more probable and second conditionals are more hypothetical.
I thought Kathy would let us leave at 2:30.
You thought it was possible, so you used a first conditional.
But you didn't think she would.
No, I thought she'd stop us, so I thought it was improbable, unlikely.
So if we think something is unlikely to happen, we use the second conditional.
Exactly.
Now, something else is strange. We were talking about the future here, right?
Yeah.
But you used the past tense.
Yes, this is important. The past tense doesn't indicate past time here. It indicates a distance from reality. We often use the past tense like this in English.
I think we need some more examples.
Then let's have the story.
And while you're watching, see how many second conditionals you can spot.
I've got so much work to do, and my assistant is Jay. You see the problem? But if I fired Jay, I could get someone else. A smart, intelligent woman. The interviews are starting now. Thanks for coming in.
The job sounds very interesting.
Well, I've got some questions for you.
Of course.
Okay, first one. How long does it take you to reply to a text message?
Not long. Usually, if you texted me, I'd probably reply in about 5 or 10 minutes.
Wow, that's much better than Jay. I texted him at 10 last night and it took him 2 hours to respond.
You texted him at 10 last night?
Yes, I wanted him to pick up my dry cleaning. In fact, that's my next question. If I asked you to pick up my clothes from the dry cleaners, would you complain? Well, it's great to meet you.
You too.
I have a lot of questions for you, but this one is important for this job. Do you like dogs?
Yes.
Great, because I have 4 Rottweilers that I'd like to bring to the office.
But if you brought them to the office, they'd need walking.
Exactly, thank you for offering. Now, I'm working on my master's degree at the moment, and sometimes it's hard for me to get all my homework done.
Well, those degrees can be a lot of work.
So, if I asked you to do my homework, would you help me? So this is the break room where we can make our coffee and tea.
It's very nice.
Sometimes I'm so busy, I don't have time to make my tea.
Oh.
And it's a big health problem for me because I get dehydrated and ill, you know.
Well, if you needed a cup of tea, I guess I could make one for you.
Thank you. I like herbal tea and I like it brewed for 3 minutes and 45 seconds, and I'd like one every hour, please. If you were me, who would you choose? They were all good. Hi, it's Vicky. I was very impressed with you at your interview, and I'd like to offer you the job.
Oh, thank you, but I've had another offer.
Well, not to worry. So what do you think?
Oh, I've decided I wanted to spend more time with my family.
I'm afraid it's not a good fit. I'm allergic to herbal teas.
Oh. What's that?
It's your dry cleaning.
Oh.
Would you like a cup of tea?
Oh, yes, please. I guess he's not that bad.
How many examples did you spot?
There were 7. Let's look at them again. But if I fired Jay, I could get someone else.
This is interesting because instead of would, you said could.
It means I would have the ability to get someone else. I'm not saying I would for sure, but it's a possibility.
Well, thanks for that. So, would isn't the only modal verb we can use in the results clause.
Yes, they have slightly different meanings, but we can say would, could, may, might, should.
Okay, another example.
If you texted me, I'd probably reply in about 5 or 10 minutes.
Wow! If I texted you, you wouldn't reply in 10 minutes.
No, I probably wouldn't. I'm too busy.
Notice how we form the negatives. The negative of would is would not. So when we're speaking, we usually use the contraction would not, wouldn't.
Okay, another example.
If I asked you to pick up my clothes from the dry cleaners, would you complain?
We heard a question there.
Yes. Would is a modal verb, so to form the question, we reverse the word order. You would complain? Would you complain?
That's easy.
Yeah. Next example. Because I have 4 Rottweilers that I'd like to bring to the office.
But if you brought them to the office, they'd need walking.
Exactly. Thank you for offering.
We heard another contraction there. They would. They'd.
Yeah.
Notice how we form contractions with would. I'd, you'd, he'd, she'd, it'd, we'd, they'd.
The problem my students have with these contractions is they confuse I had with I would.
Oh yes, I had, I'd. I would, I'd. It's the same contraction.
You have to look at the context to work it out.
Okay, another example.
Well, those degrees can be a lot of work.
So, if I asked you to do my homework, would you help me? Would you help me is a very common phrase, and it's half of a second conditional.
We can also say, can you help me, but would you help me sounds a little more polite.
It's because there's more distance from reality,
I'm not sure if you'll help me.
and that makes it a little more polite. We heard a similar example. So I get dehydrated and ill, you know.
Well, if you needed a cup of tea, I guess I could make one for you.
Thank you. We could also say, I can make you a cup of tea. It's another way to make an offer.
But could sounds a little more uncertain.
Yes, a little more tentative and polite.
So that's why would and could are useful for making requests and offers.
Yes. Okay, we have one more example, and this is very interesting. If you were me, who would you choose? Okay, so I have a question. Is it possible for you to be me?
No, of course not.
But that's what I'm saying here. We can use the second conditional to imagine all kinds of impossible things like, if I had $1 million,
If I were the President of the United States.
if I were 20 years younger. A common phrase we use to give advice is, if I were you. So if I were you, I'd watch all our videos, or I'd study English every day. It's impossible for me to be you, but with the second conditional, we can imagine unreal things.
Notice that the grammar is a little strange here. Normally with be in the past tense, we say I was, you were, he was, and so on. But in the second conditional, we say were for all the forms of the verb be. Why is that?
It's called the subjunctive, if you want to look it up. But if you get it wrong and say I was instead of I were, it's no big deal.
We often say that too in conversation.
Yeah, but if you're taking an exam in English, they'll often test you on this.
And then you want to say, if I were you, not if I was you. So are we done?
Well, not really, because we're going to look at the third conditional next, but that's another video.
So make sure you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss it.
And if you've enjoyed this video, please share it with a friend.
See you all next week, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.